Hello, this is Matt Janucki, and you're listening to Season 2 of Inside Men's Mental Health, brought to you by Psych Sessions. Here we explore this thing called masculinity and its impact on men's mental health, relationships, and communities. We'll learn together through conversations with thought leaders, innovators, industry experts, as well as everyday men. Our conversations will help us understand how these individuals became interested in men's mental health and the ways their journeys have made them who they are today. Levy has been involved in men's groups for 23 years, and in this episode he pulls back the curtain on what actually happens inside a men's circle and why it's been one of the most transformative experiences of his life. Lou shares how, as a self-described, introverted 30-year-old who was really struggling to connect, a therapist pointed him towards a men's group. What started as an uncomfortable walk through a door has evolved into a rich network of deep friendships and a life built on emotional honesty, accountability, and community. I think you'll find his story interesting and compelling. A quick note, there are many different kinds of men's groups, and this episode reflects one kind. So I would encourage you to not let this episode be the definitive example of what a men's group should be. I hope, though, that it at least provides an idea for you of what this type of group might look like. Thanks, and enjoy. Lou Levy, welcome to Inside Men's Mental Health. Glad to talk with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, we connected just a few months ago. You reached out and you've been involved in work around kind of engaging men for a while now, and so I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that. So, but kind of before we get in there, maybe just introduce yourself a little bit and maybe just talk a little bit about how you became interested in helping and supporting men.
Sure. I've been involved in men's groups for 23 years, mostly through Mankind Project. As a 30-year-old, I was miserable, and I felt like I deserved to be happier. I, through some therapists, found Mankind Project.
Okay.
And I'm not a joiner. I'm not religiously affiliated. I'm pretty introverted. But this group and groups like it have consistently helped me greatly. I'm not on the board of MKP, Mankind Project. I'm just a guy. But being able to walk into a room of men completely unself-conscious it's one of the rare places where I can feel completely myself and be accepted. I'm pretty introverted, and I had trouble connecting in my 30s. I'm 67 now.
Okay, that was one of the things I was wondering about, is how old you are now.
I've been retired from physical therapy for 3 years. I was an assistant for 30 years. I mean, I would ask your listeners how do they get friendships? Maybe it's through a church or a softball team or whatever their hobby is. For me, it has been difficult to get friends. And there are different levels of friendships. You know, there are the friends you talk about, Boise State football, and that's great. Mm-hmm. But the way that a men's circle is set up, you're really learning very personal things very quickly. What it might take, a certain friendship, it might take years for them to really say what there really is on their heart. In the men's circle, you're getting to the point pretty quickly, which, especially today, we're in a hurry, and our attention is being pulled in a lot of different directions.
Sure.
So being able to sit down for an hour and a half and really get to what's working for me and what isn't working for me has been really huge.
Yeah.
I have a big network of friends that will support me when I need them. I'm still heavily involved in men's work. I guess for the audience, I guess I'd like to kind of break down what happens in a men's group, because I'm hoping that they'll attend one.
Yeah, probably lots of guys. And you talk about like being in this space with other men, and you talked about like a men's circle. That's something that may be pretty unfamiliar for people. So yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about like, yeah, what happens, what maybe a little more about like what is a men's circle, and then how that can be beneficial for a guy.
I'm hoping that I can kind of break down the mysticism around.
Okay.
So one thing men's work is therapy.
Okay.
And that's really important. And as I get older and I see younger guys coming up, almost all of the guys have been to therapy and kind of understand the dynamic.
It sounds like you said that was your first stop too. You said you were in therapy, and then
Yes.
that's how you got connected to men's work.
Yes, that's correct. So men's work is support, but being witnessed and witnessing people is surprisingly powerful, very powerful. Being seen and seeing people and seeing that my problems, although as a 30-year-old I thought I was the only one, but you quickly see that it's not as unusual as you think. So, and this is in a Mankind Project group, but it's also pretty universal. You'll walk into the group, you won't know a soul, you'll find a chair and wonder what you're going to do.
Okay.
And the first thing you're going to do is
That sounds scary.
Yes. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Especially for guys, you don't know anybody, and maybe
Right.
this idea of you got to be vulnerable, like that sounds like a scary space.
The hardest part is walking through the door.
Yeah.
Right. Once you find your chair, it's going to get easier from there.
Okay.
So there's in some way we get there. We arrive. So you sit down and you're thinking about what you have to do after the group, or maybe somebody just cut you off in traffic, or you had an argument with your wife, girlfriend, significant other, or there's a swirl in your mind. So the group takes time to kind of get you here. Different groups have different ways of doing that. Okay. Some groups have a meditation. I think classically, when you think of men's groups, you think of drumming. Why we do drumming? Tubas are too big? I don't know why we do drumming. We do drumming because it's a foundational instrument. It's the first instrument in civilization besides voice, and it's a way to attune to the group.
Okay.
Groups can be, I think the sweet spot is like 8 people. Mm-hmm. Could be more, could be less. Some groups are open and all are welcome. Some groups open for a while and then close where they don't accept new members. The 2 groups that I'm with right now are both open, and I hope people will come and visit. So, and there might be a question asked. I think the last group I attended, the question was, what are you waiting for? And so, and for some men, they hear it as a really loud, maybe even their fathers are saying, what are you waiting for? Other men are, what, it's just curiosity, which is kind of what we're trying to create. Instead of a judgment, we're just being curious about each other. Maybe there's a meditation. So then we're there, we're started with the group. And so then we each have take a turn. Some groups use a talking stick.
Yep, right.
It's just a great way that when somebody's holding the talking stick, they have the room, and everybody else is listening and trying not to think of what they're going to say, which is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's always hard.
Right, because we're busy, our minds are busy. We might say what the best thing about our week was and what the worst thing was, but we're giving our voices to the room, and we're telling folks who we are, giving our names. One thing that is really important is safety. We don't talk about other people's work.
Yep.
I can talk about my work.
Yep.
That's what I'm doing today, is talking about my work.
Yep.
That's foundational to all of this work. You don't gossip about another person. So then everybody's checked in. This is where it gets a little bit different for different groups. What I find most effective is we do an accountability round, which is, am I accountable to myself, and am I accountable to the group? For instance, and this has been key for me. Sometimes I will do what we call a stretch. It's goal setting.
Okay.
And this week's stretch for me was I was going to give myself 5 affirmations in the morning for 5 days out of 7. And then I contact one of the people in the group and I tell them whether I did that accountability piece or not. For me, this has been really eye-opening because we tend to make our goals, it's like an exercise goal. I'm going to exercise 7 days this week. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to, for an hour and a half. And the goals are too big. And so day 2 we fall off, and as humans, when we fall off, we fall pretty hard.
Sure.
We're slow to get back on the horse. So one thing that the circle does is invite the man to make an easier stretch. Make it, instead of a half-court shot, make it a layup.
Yeah.
How about
I like it.
How about 3 days a week? Could you do that 3 days a week?
Yeah.
Okay. And how can we support that? You want me to contact you on a certain day, or in this case, I contacted one of the men in the group, told them that I did the stretch, and then you report it back to the group, and the group isn't, if you don't make the stretch, if you don't do it, the group is curious why. Yeah. They don't really care if you do it or not, but they're just curious. What happened? Is there something new? Did you do something different? What's your thinking? It's not they're not calling you out in any way. The other thing that is in this round is clearing.
Okay. And
clearings are another kind of foundational piece, and sometimes not well understood.
Okay.
A clearing is when another man is holding energy. And this could be anything. This could be, you looked at me funny. But what a clearing is for is I am projecting my beliefs onto another man.
Okay.
It's not about the man, which has been, I've seen that, I've abused it. I'm yelling at some guy and not owning my projection. And here's a clearing that I have with a man in the community, and he knows about it. Someday we'll clear about it, but it's fresh on my mind.
Okay. Yeah, those are always the best examples, those
fresh
ones.
Right. Yeah. One goal that I have is to do a co-ed group. And it is hard for me I think I could make it work with men because I know a lot of men. I don't know a lot of women that are doing this work. Maybe they've moved on. Maybe they figured it out and moved on. I'm not sure. But it's not as readily available to me. Anyway, so I talked to another man about it. And so we got kind of into it, and he basically wanted to give me lessons on how to do groups. And so it triggered me,
okay.
Which is really interesting, because I know some things. I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've done in our group we share leadership, which is another thing that's been fantastic.
Sure.
And so My take is that he doesn't think that he thinks that I don't know what I'm doing, essentially. And I know this man, and I don't think that's what he thinks at all, but that's what it triggered in me. Mind you, this is after 23 years of doing these clearings, and sometimes getting it right and sometimes doing it wrong. But clearings are a way to also to create space. And years ago, 15 years ago, I did a little of this work at Folsom Prison. Okay. I had the honor to go in for a weekend at Folsom Prison, where I think they're still doing this work. Okay. Some of the same men that I worked with, sadly, are still there, long terms. It's a way to not be violent. You're owning you're owning you're creating space. You're owning what's yours, and you're not swinging at somebody.
Yeah.
You're just acting out.
Right.
Because one thing that civilization has taught us that fighting, it really doesn't really work, although we continue to play that out. So clearing is really a good clearing. There's nothing like a good clearing to really tighten the group, to make everybody see what's theirs and be really clear about the energy in the room.
Yeah, that sounds like a really helpful model to help men communicate, right? To communicate verbally, right? To communicate thoughts and feelings, right? And to get those onto the table, and then respond to what somebody's brought out, and then respond to how somebody's responding, and like that. I like that as a way to, instead of like, he said that to me and that jerk, and I'm really angry about that, and then to respond out of that to de-escalate and make it verbal. And I really like that. And a great skill.
Projection can be really complicated. I mean, it's easy, when I say I don't like your shirt, and it's like, oh well, that's, I don't know, it's because somebody was mean to me when they wore that shirt that. It's harder when when you're not sure what the projection is, why you're triggered so much. So traditionally, there's a man who facilitates
the clearing.
Gotcha. And it's really discussed a bit before. It's the man who's being cleared has to understand he is a mirror. He's just a mirror.
Yeah.
It's not about him, unless there's and then there's something that he might own later, but not necessarily.
Okay.
So we talk about having a shield.
Okay.
Sometimes a man stands behind him so that he's supported, because it can get intense.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm so in it that I can't see the projection, and then that's no longer a clearing. Then we're doing work.
Yeah.
So that's projections. One man in the community talks about men's group being pretty simple. It's speak your truth and speak from the heart. Show up and speak from the heart.
Yeah. So you're saying that you've been doing this for 23 years.
Yes.
So you have a lot of personal experience doing this work, both like your own work, your own process. You've seen other men, right? Like going through this, because you're doing this with other men. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about both you can speak out of your own personal experience and or some of the just general things you've seen with other men. How have you seen other men and yourself benefit and grow through this experience?
Well, one thing is that the men that are in the group, it really, I don't know where else you could sit in a circle of men where there's a police officer, there's a guy who was in jail, there's a guy who recently divorced, a guy who was just getting married. This experience is, you've got guys who are their wives just had babies. There are guys who have lost their children. Children have died.
Yeah.
So you get this cross-section of humanity
Yeah.
that I don't know where else you could do that. Everybody is speaking from their heart, speaking their truth. I've done things that I didn't really think I could do. I sat on the local Boise Physical Therapy Association board for a while. And I took risks because I could see in the men's work that it was okay, that men would support me, that men were taking risks, I was taking risks. I'm taking a risk now by really seeking you out to do this podcast, because I think the work is so valuable. A good friend of mine walked into the group one night, pretty much just out of jail, getting a divorce, very drug addicted, and he's now doing leadership. He's involved in leadership. And it's really, guys are able to really go from the depths through creating time and space to really become very successful in their lives. There are managers. I've seen several managers come through, CEOs, they've become very successful. And it's also kind of eye-opening. I see who on the street, I would say, have money, they're very successful outwardly, but inwardly they're in pain. I've seen that too. And to get this kind of support, the groups that I sit in are for free. I will talk later about something that's coming up with Mankind Project. I think it's a scary place to walk into, but once you're there, it can be I think some of the ceremony can be off-putting to a person that doesn't understand what's happening, like the drumming. Sometimes some groups use sage to sort of clear energy, kind of ceremonial sorts of things can be a little weird for people. And you don't have to do any of it.
Yeah, right.
You don't have, you're totally, you can take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah.
And your belief system is totally welcome. Whether you're a devout Catholic or a devout Hindu or whatever you are, your belief system is welcome.
Yeah.
And encouraged, because I want to learn about it. The men want to learn. So then there is the work round. The work.
Yeah.
And the work can be something in your life that is not working for you. And that could be job, that could be money issues, relationship. It's a big one.
Yeah.
For many years, it was the job I was in.
Okay.
I hated my boss, and so there are processes that you can do to get clear about what's going on here. And this is kind of where your feelings, you can kind of better understand what you're feeling. My history is that feelings were not in my household.
Okay.
And I had a great household. I'm from the Midwest.
Okay.
I was raised by my father. My mother died when I was very young. My father was a great guy. But he didn't, it was the 60s. He didn't have any emotion. He didn't want to show emotion. And he was very pull yourself up by your bootstraps, independent. He could, he had this. He would not ask for help. He did not. And that's one of my things too. I have a hard time asking for help.
Sure.
That's something I've worked on. And so there are these processes. For instance, like I hate my boss. So one process, I could talk to my boss. There's an empty chair in front of me.
Yep.
I'm talking to my boss. Or I could have another man be my boss and tell him what to say.
Yeah.
And then I would switch chairs and I would be my boss, telling me something.
Yeah.
And then you play that, you bounce that back and forth to get kind of a more grounding about what's going on, what are you feeling. And work can be, it can get physical. It can, sometimes men are doing work around their fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
Maybe they were abused, maybe they had a bad childhood. So you can set up a safe scenario where they are metaphorically killing their father, and they are creating a new father. They're talking about the qualities they want in a father, because although it's cliche, it's really true. You create your reality. Resisted it for years, but it's a fact. You create your reality. So you didn't have the parents you wanted. What kind of qualities do you want in a parent? You can still create that, and you can create it for yourself. I can father myself. I can mother myself. I have learned to do that. Sometimes I forget. That's why I have men to remind me how to do that.
Yeah.
So that can be powerful. That's really powerful. And it can also create kind of some resistance and self-consciousness, because I'm a smart guy. I'm fairly smart, kind of smart, and so it makes me self-conscious. It can be hard to go there because my ego doesn't want me to look, is afraid of how I'll look. And a lot of this work is kind of letting go of that. And, if you're in a room of 6 or 7 guys and, they're crying and they're doing that, it's kind of, oh, okay, that makes it okay. Oh, okay, I can go for it too.
I imagine there's, maybe or maybe not some of the people that are listening, but I imagine some people listening could think like what you're talking about, these intense experiences, right? Of intense emotional expression, intense catharsis,
Yes.
Intense vulnerability, right? That all of these different experiences are I think you're showing examples of. I imagine that there's guys that could hear that and think, no way. Like,
right.
I would fill in the blank, right? Like,
right.
I could never do that.
Yes.
Or if I did that, I would never do that in a group of guys. Maybe I could do that with like some like caring women who would because they they would understand my emotions and things like that, but I could never do it with like a group of other dudes,
right?
Or like that just sounds too. Even if in theory that's a caring community, like I could never do it because I don't really have like the skills to do it. To think of like, the chair technique that you're talking about and
right.
things like that. I imagine a lot of guys just like X, Y, Z, ABC of just. I could never do that. I'm wondering if, you've seen that a little bit of guys who are like, I don't know about that, or where the community has to really kind of come around them and give them support of like, we care about you, we can support you through this, right? Because they recognize it's really hard, it's really difficult. It may be very like, just like you talked about, like very antithetical to everything they learned as a man, like that men don't express emotions, men keep it all in, especially with other men, right? Like you don't show that vulnerability with these other men. And so I'm wondering like how the community helps, even though those scripts, right, are like, right. You shouldn't do this, you can't do this.
So one thing that's really cliche and I think puts men and women off is that, it's always, I had great parents. Why is it always why are they always killing their parents?
Right. Why is it always the parents?
That's so cliche. And my parents were great. I don't So what I would say to that is that we're all human, and parents out there are it's the hardest job that I can imagine.
Yeah.
And we're human, and so we're not perfect.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. I think you can be father of the year and still in some way your son wants to metaphorically kill you sometimes.
Still injure your children,
Right.
No matter how hard
Yes.
you try. Yep.
So, but to your point, you don't have to do any of it. You can watch. In my current group, there are men who don't work yet. Someday they might.
Okay.
But there's no. They don't have to. It's all their choice.
So there's some pacing there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some men jump in. Most men kind of sit back and kind of observe.
Okay.
For a bit.
Yeah.
And there's still ways to get a lot from the group, even if you don't step into this work at first. It goes back to the stretches and to witnessing and being witnessed, because it can be a scary place.
Yeah.
And some men have to take time to develop trust.
Mm-hmm.
Understandable. And there's also, I think, with Mankind Project, there's a teaching piece too.
Okay.
We teach people sort of the how, especially if you're new. We answer all your questions, and we'll talk about why we do what we do and why it works, and sometimes it doesn't work, and why it didn't work. Works pretty well, however.
Well, let's do that a little bit. We've kind of alluded to Mankind Project. I mean, you've been mentioning a little bit, and we've talked about this group, this model, right? And so just maybe talk a little bit about what Mankind Project is, a little bit about the background of it, and that'll just help people know a little bit more about, just kind of what the org is and how it works, your experience with it.
Sure. So Mankind Project was started 40 years ago.
Okay, wow.
It's an international organization, and it's foundationally, it was started because we've lost initiation from being boys to being men.
Mm.
We lost kind of the ceremony of initiation. Yeah. So Mankind Project has a New Warrior initiation weekend. And we happen to have one on April 17th in Utah.
Okay.
People can go to mkp.org. We would love to see people there. I think we've got 20 men signed up so far for the weekend. There's also one in Idaho in August, but they go on throughout the world. Okay. And this is a 3-day weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and it's incredibly well put together, and a lot of people put in a lot of work to do the weekend. We initiate men to be new warriors. We give them we offer them healing, and we honor their path to being the men that they want to be. And so men go through that weekend, and then and I think what separates Mankind Project from other weekends, because there are a lot of weekends, we have something called an I group, which is an integration group. Currently we have 2 in the Boise area. Probably we'll be adding a 3rd in the next 6 months or so. And you don't have to be initiated to come to the groups. They are open. They can find us through mkp.org and come and experience it. So they have the tools from the initiation. Then because I'm a slow learner, so I can't change my reality in a weekend.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I go to this group, and I'm through time and practice and success and failure, I can hang on to these tools and make them part of me. So that's and there's also, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but after the weekend, after a man does the weekend, and the weekend does have a cost, there are some scholarships, but that's really the only cost there is. So 23 years ago, I spent $600, and I haven't had to spend any money since then. It's probably the best investment I've ever made. There's also what's called a pit training, which kind of, after the initiation weekend, there's a pit training which kind of gives you more of a sense of how to function in an I group. But I don't know of another group, and I've done some other work, shadow work and such, these weekends. Mankind Project really allows you to plug into a group wherever you are. They do I groups, integration groups online, so you really can connect with like-minded men.
So if somebody's listening, like, okay, this experience of connecting with other men, doing this kind of work, like, I think that's something that I could engage in. The Mankind Project, can somebody just like go in, find these groups, do some work in these groups, or is it that somebody goes and does the kind of the weekend, this like immersive weekend where they're doing the initiation and then they go into a group?
We have open groups, so okay. I would really encourage people to try out one of these groups.
Okay.
They don't have to be initiated.
Okay, gotcha.
We think it's really valuable, so we'll offer it, but you don't have to do the initiation.
Yeah. And
there are other groups around Boise too that don't have initiations, and most of them are like 9-week cycles. They have like an opening night, and then they close for like 9 weeks, and then they might have a retreat weekend after.
Okay.
And the groups that I've attended have the same sort of model of an opening, a safety discussion, a clearing process, and then some sort of work.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's helpful just to kind of get a sense of how one might be able to plug in, and if it's kind of more funneled, but what I hear you saying is that, yeah, there are these open groups, and if somebody's interested, they can just join right into that group.
Yeah.
Well, what I'd love to kind of get us towards as we get towards the end of our time is to really kind of crystallize this a little bit again, since you've been doing this work for a while, and somebody may be like, they could be really interested in it, or they might be ambivalent about it. Like, I don't know, that sounds really good. I hear this Lou guy talking about it, but I don't know. And other guys might just be like, I'm pretty unsure about that. I'm wondering, what's the biggest, if you can do this, Lou, like, what would you say is like the biggest benefit you've gotten from doing this kind of experience, like how it's impacted your life? If somebody's kind of thinking, I'm not sure about this, but then if they could hear somebody who's done this work, even though it's hard, even though it might be scary, what's the biggest way it's changed your life?
Well, I guess what comes up is the deep friendships that I've had. I think I honestly, if you're a 40-year-old man, I don't know how to make a friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard out there.
And when, like, if I'm at a bar or I'm at which I rarely go to, or even the supermarket, if some man comes up to me, I'm immediately thinking, what's your angle? What do you want from me?
Yeah.
I don't trust it. This is a way to very quickly, because I don't have a lot of time. I'm 67, the time's clicking, the clock is on. This is a way for me to get deep friendships and really cut to really see men clearly in a short amount of time. And then I've backpacked with these men. We do evenings, we've axe thrown, a friend and I are hiking the Grand Canyon this May. All of my friends, and I have for an introvert, I have a surprising amount of friends. And all of my friends are either men's group or men's group adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
I know this woman from this man, or I know this is all from men's group.
Yeah.
So it's not just interpersonal, it's socially, it's hobbies, it's professional. I once sat in a men's group with a manager of mine, much to our surprise. That was a memorable clearing.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes. I guess that's the biggest thing, is that you can quickly make really close connections, and you really see who people are, and then you can talk about the football game.
Yeah.
That's why it's foundational to me.
Yeah, I think that's huge. As we talk about, all sorts of things around like our building community generally, like here in the United States, and just kind of fewer community spaces, right? And
yes,
that being associated with more disconnection. And then of course, when you layer the kind of meta masculinity part of that, of men struggling to build those communities, right? And yeah, there's spaces like church and sports, but like those places like church, there's less engagement there. In sports, like that's a very specific context. And then there's lots of men who don't engage in sports, and like as men get older, right, that gets challenging, and and it's harder as men. Like I can think of myself, like as I got older, getting older, your priorities shift and change, right? And so your
time is brief.
Yeah. So how do you get those relationships with other men, right? And so what I hear a lot of what you talking about, like there's this space where there can be this really intentional building of this community with other men, and your investment of that over time has been really beneficial for you.
Yes.
And you built this really rich community, broadly speaking, but also this really rich support community of other men. And that's been really important for you. And I think that is A, increasingly unique, but B, I think it's worth thinking about that as a model, right, of how can men build these relationships through something like this, of intentional men's communities, right? And so that's great to hear you talk about how those relationships are so important, especially in this stage of your life as an adult.
Yeah.
It's so great to hear you like echo that important piece. So thank you for that. You've talked a lot about the skills you built and the experiences you had, but I think that's really important to hear you talk about that relational component. Really is like this big piece that this group has helped you with. So thank you for trying to think of the right metaphor, but for like italicizing that or rubber stamping that to really kind of make that piece clear, because I think it's important for guys to hear that.
Yeah, I would welcome men to try it out. It really, walking through the door is the longest walk.
Yeah, the longest walk.
But once you get in your seat, men will welcome you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's been a great conversation. It's been great to learn about this experience, this space. It's been really beneficial for you. Any kind of final pieces? Anything else that that you'd like to add in that we didn't hit on today? I mean, I know that we're missing a lot about the experience of just what it's been like for you. But anything else that you were hoping to get in today that'd be helpful to put in?
Well, I would just remind people about April 17th, the Mankind Project Adventure Weekend. It's kind of outside of Ogden.
Yeah.
And there's one in August. nkp.org has all that information. nkp.org will also, if you, I think, put in your zip code, a local man will
reach out,
contact.
That's great. Great. Well, it's been fun talking. Thank you for being vulnerable about your experience here and for telling us about Mankind Project.
Well, thank you very much for having me, man.
Yeah.